of India, but they contribute to almost 10% of India's GDP. And I used to feel very awkward that India is overwhelmed by Hindu mythology when we have so many mythologies. And I thought I should focus, while I wrote articles on Jainism, I thought I should focus because there's so many learnings in Jain mythology which I'll share today. But it has personally helped me live a better life. And so it's a very personal thank you to a wisdom.
How wonderful, how wonderful. Also the title is very intriguing. You know, when you hear the word Bahubali, immediately what springs to mind these days is the Rajamouli movie, you know, a hyper-masculine action and violence. Your Bahubali is a different Bahubali. It's a calmer Bahubali, a peace-loving Bahubali. Tell us about that.
So that was one of the reasons we chose the title.
Okay.
Especially the Digambar community, Bahubali plays a very important role. In the Shwetambar Jain community, he doesn't play an important role. So it was a decision because, you know, when young people talk about Bahubali, they think of a Bollywood movie and they think of a very violent, you know, hyper-masculine hero. And I felt bad that India's world's first non-violent hero is Bahubali. And he seems to be eclipsed by Bollywood's violent hero. So I think at least people should know that our culture has a non-violent hero which is unheard of in civilizations around the world. So I think the least we can do is remember Bahubali.
Wonderful. We all know that Rishabh Dev is, of course, you start the book with Rishabh Dev, who's the first Tirthankar. Now, what exactly does the word Tirthankar mean? I mean, of course, when I hear the word Tirth, it gives image of pilgrimage, but to enlighten us, what is exactly the meaning of that word?
So, Tirth is a geographical phenomenon. So, you should understand, traditionally in India, people would travel from one water body to another water body. So, they would travel, and the moment a river would come, they would not cross the river. It was considered not proper to cross the river. Especially if you are a mendicant. So the only way to cross a river is to take a boat or a bridge. But a boat or a bridge is created by human beings. So it's man-made, it's artificial. So a holy man in India would never touch anything man-made. So they would not cross it. So they would look for the shallow part of the river where they could cross. You can just walk across the shallow part where there are rocks. That's called a tirth. That's the original meaning of the word tirth, and that is where holy men would stay. That is the place that the pilgrimage spot became, the temples emerged. So the Tirthankar walked that path, but more importantly it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for crossing the river of life and figuring out, being calm and relaxed about life. And I think that's the best thing you learn in Jainism is that just calm down. उत्तेजित होने की कोई आवश्यकता नहीं है. So I think one thing you learn from Jainism is how to be calm, composed, and if you see the images and artwork of Tirthankars, they're very calm, composed, and you know Rishabh Dev we speak about, all the Tirthankars look the same, which means they've given up identity. I am not Rishabh Dev anymore, I am cosmic. So that all the 24 Tirthankars look exactly the same. The only reason the human being wants to say, is it Rishabh Dev, is it Mallinath, is it Parshnath, they have symbols for our benefit, not for their benefit. So I think this is a wise, these are complex ideas, and I think we are a country of these wonderful ideas, and I love writing about them.
How similar or dissimilar is the Jain concept of the Tirthankar with the Hindu concept of the Ishwar? I mean, is it also as cosmic a soul as...
So, Hinduism is theistic. So, there is the assumption that there is a divine being who sort of encompasses the whole world. This concept does not exist in Jainism. So, while we use words like atheism and as something which comes from the West, both Buddhism and Jainism do not acknowledge an all-powerful God. There is no concept of all-powerful God. In Buddhism, Buddha says, I have no patience with this idea. But in Jainism, they say nature has always existed. It's Anadi, Ananta. There is no beginning, there is no end. And therefore, life continues and we have to engage with life. So they don't bother with the idea of God. There is no bhakti, there is no God save me. You have to take care of yourself. This journey is a lonely one. All of us, there is no God out there to protect you. You have to do it on your own. And therefore, shrama, effort, you have to work with yourself. So, shramana parampara, work with yourself. And the idea of being alone, therefore the word kaivalya essentially means extreme isolation. Can you sit in a room without being acknowledged or recognized? As a public figure, you know how difficult it is, right? You sit in an airport and nobody recognizes Devdutt Patnaik and you feel, oh my God, I have lost the mojo.
I'm sure that has never happened.
But that's what life is about. One day you will be forgotten and it's okay. And that's what the Jains talk about. And that's shrama. It requires effort to deal with invisibility, to live happily even if nobody recognizes you. And I think these ideas, and they're written about what, 2,000, 2,500 years ago. For me that's very uplifting.
It is. In fact, I think the concept of pride is something that Jainism really attacks, in the sense that, I think attacks is too wide a word for Jainism. The fact that the sense of ego, self-elevation is something that the Jain ethics is what talks about controlling that, which I think is what you're talking about. Yeah, alright. Also, Rishabh Dev was the first Tirthankar, and what is an example of wonderful cross-pollination of cultures is that there are many stories of Rishabh Dev in the company of Hindu gods. So do tell us about that and maybe a story.
Yes, maybe I'll do that in the session. So I have a speech prepared, so let me finish that.
My job easier.
And so I'll give a talk for a few minutes and then we could maybe
talk about that later. Alright, sure. Also this whole idea of, there are two schools of thought regarding the emergence of Jainism. Some say it came as a reaction to Hinduism because there was a stage when Hindu culture, Hindu religion saw sort of decline, and both Buddhism and Jainism came as reactions to that, which also led to a lot of conversions. Chandragupta Maurya being a very famous Jain convert. Another thought says that it emerged from Hinduism itself, from the Sanatan Dharma, from the very womb of Hinduism. So which one is true?
See, this idea that Buddhism and Jainism is a reaction, and look at the words you use, convert. These are European words, these are colonial words. And when the British wrote the history of India, they used the template of Europe to explain India. And they said, just as there's a Catholic faith which was reacted on by the Protestants, Hinduism has a reaction called Buddhism and Jainism, and they saw Buddhism and Jainism as a Protestant version of Hinduism. Now these are 19th century colonial outdated ideas. We can cling to it. Many people love 19th century ideas like antiques. Some people love antiques, some people like colonial ideas. I would like to live in the 21st century. And in the 21st century we know that in the Bihar, Jharkhand, what is called Greater Magad area, ideas emerged on their own amongst the mercantile community, not agricultural community, who spoke of karma, who spoke of very different ways of thinking. So Ajivikas, Jains, what we call Shraman, they really emerge in the eastern part of India, and these are original ideas which sort of intermingled with each other. It's really a political arrogance that you are an offshoot of my faith, you are a reaction of my faith. This is me giving myself too much importance, and we should be very careful of the ego. Ego seduces us and destroys us. If you really want to have wisdom and you want to understand knowledge, you have to see data for what it is, not for what you would like data to be. And I think if you really want to be successful as a thinker, you must allow data and knowledge to frighten you and shock you and reveal beauty of life. Yeah?
It's wonderful. It's wonderfully put. I remember seeing one of your podcasts on the book, and you said a very fascinating thing, that you understood the concept of Vaikuntha better after writing this book and after being aware of the ethics of Jainism. Please do enlighten us. How does, and that again is for the podium. Okay, alright, wonderful. Also there are supposed to be, okay, I'll just end one last question, you can then take the stage. There are supposed to be Jain Ramayana and, Jain Mahabharata as well.
Yes.
Do those books expound a different set of ethics that is more in conjunction with the Jain worldview?
Yes, it is. The Jain is, so there are, you find Jain Ramayana, lots of Jain Ramayana, which is written in Prakrit, Kannada, Ardhamagadi, very different in ideas. You find Jataka tales which sort of sound like Ramayana, they may not. So India is a land of stories, and the different stories were told to explain different ideas. Even when we say Ramayana, there is a Valmiki Ramayana, there are other Ramayans. Even Valmiki has multiple things. So the broad idea is about talking about someone who is steadfast. So Ram is the steadfast. And what is steadfast in Jainism is very different from what is steadfast in Buddhism. What is steadfast? So idea of integrity, commitment, that is non-negotiable. So when we talk about Ram, we talk about that. So you have to read them in the spirit in which they were written. And they were, and some ideas come from Jainism which is not found in Buddhism, which is not found in Hinduism. So it's like a Venn diagram. So depending on what you want to pick and choose, you pick and choose.
I think you have a speech prepared. I think we all want to hear that. Thank you.
इसी के साथ इस बुलेटिन में फिलहाल इतना ही। नमस्कार।